Hey, it's David. Question I often get asked is what Piggyback ECU controller should I use for my Generation 2 Duke? Generation 1 Dukes need them less often, but you can still fit them. But what I'm going to focus on are the Gen 2 bikes. That's the ones that look like this. What I want to do is, rather than telling you which one you should be buying, I want to give you the tools to decide which one you should be buying. What's the problem? Why do you need a Piggyback ECU for your bike? And the answer is emissions controls. Emission controls have got tighter and tighter. So the amount of emissions a bike produces is largely a factor of fuel. It's the fuel that creates the pollution, and the emissions controls restrict how much pollution the bike makes. The easiest way to reduce the amount of pollution coming out of your bike is to reduce the amount of fuel going into your bike, and that's what the manufacturers have all done. The problem with that is that it makes the bikes run lean. If your bike runs too lean, basically you'll blow up your engine. And I know firsthand about blowing up your engine because you run the bike too lean. Now this is one of the pistons out of my Sportster, and what you've got here is it's covered in burnt bits of aluminium. Here the top of the piston has completely gone. It's blown away, the lands as they call it, for it, and that's what happens if you run it too lean. It gets too hot, it melts your pistons, and the bits of piston go up into the head, destroy the head. If you blow a hole through here, which you can do, then bits go down to the bottom end of your engine, and the bits of metal churning around inside the engine will write the engine off. So this is what happens when you run a bike too lean. That's the problem. What's the solution? Now you can't remap the ECU on these bikes. That's a no-no. It's locked down. You can't touch it. But what you can do is add what they call a piggyback ECU, and basically it sits between the sensors and the ECU of the bike, and it lies to the ECU. Is in very simple terms is how it works. So it reads the sensors, it tells the ECU a different number, and therefore the ECU puts more fuel in than it would have done if it could actually read what the sensors are really saying. That's how they work. If you are running a stock bike, it's completely stock, but you find that it runs a bit jerky at low revs, there's two sides to this. One is that that's perfectly normal for a single cylinder bike. On a 2-stroke you don't have this problem. On a 4-stroke you run at low revs, it hasn't got enough torque to keep the engine going, and it will stutter and jerk about a bit. So that's normal. You can get used to it, but it just means running the revs a little bit higher and slipping the clutch. And the problem is made worse by the lean running. Because it's running lean, there's not enough fuel in the engine, it doesn't want to run at all in that situation, hence the jerkiness. Then what you need is one of the simple controllers, and two of the most common is the booster plug and the Rapid Bike Easy. So that's what they will do. They will help out that low speed running. They'll make the bike run more smoothly. They're also the cheapest. They're much the same. I don't know there's a lot between them. The one advantage I would say to the Rapid Bike Easy is that it has some adjustment on it, so you can set how much fuel actually goes through, which I don't think the booster plug does. So I would probably fall on the Rapid Bike Easy side if somebody asked me which of the two would I recommend. But look into it, read about them, and look at the prices, because you may prefer one or the other. The next stage is where you've modified your bike a bit. Now what happens when you decat a bike, or you put in an airbox lid with holes in it, or you run without the baffle in the exhaust, say you've moved to an Akrapovic exhaust like mine, then what happens is there's more air flowing through the exhaust or in through the airbox into the bike, so there's more air going through. But if you put more air in, you need to put more fuel in, because if you don't, the bike will run lean. So that's why if you do some modifications to your exhaust system on a bike like this, or you put the open airbox lid onto the airbox, then you need to put a controller in. And I don't think that the booster plug and the Rapid Bike Easy will enable enough adjustments to compensate for that extra air. And the problem is, if you blow your engine up, it's really expensive to fix. So you're better off investing a little bit more money into one of the other systems to actually make sure that doesn't happen. There are a number of people out there, and as time goes by, more people join in and more options become available. I mean, for example, Austin Racing have a fueling box, but I'm not going to talk about it because I don't really know much about it, and it's more aimed at the people with an Austin Racing exhaust rather than more general. Now, once you're at the modification stage, you've basically got two options. You've got maps and you've got auto-tune. Maps are where someone's basically put the bike on a dyno with the setup. So maybe it's an Akrapovic exhaust and a decat, and they've run it on the dyno and they've adjusted all the settings that you need to make the bike run well with that setup. And they've then saved it into a map, and that map, if you load that map onto the bike and that's your setup, then you're good to go. The problem with it is that if you then put an open airbox filter lid, you then need a map potentially that will cover the open airbox lid with a decat and a debaffled exhaust. So this is where it starts to get more complicated, and unless you have the money to be doing it to take it to a dyno, then you need software, you need a laptop, you need to have cables and connect it up, and it's more complicated, it's more technical. That's where the problem comes in with the maps. If you've got a known configuration, then it works. If you don't have a known configuration, or you like to play about with your bike like me, then you might go auto-tune. And that's the route that I've gone, and that's the reason that I've gone auto-tune, is because it allows the ECU to adapt to whatever I've got. So if I put a decat on this, the bike will start to suck more air. The Piggyback ECU will realise that the bike's running too lean. It'll add more fuel. If I then put an open airbox lid on it, the ECU will realise that it's getting more air through it, and it'll add even more fuel. So it'll automatically adapt to your bike's setup. There's only one company out there that I'm aware of that does auto-tune as the default setting, and that's Rapid Bike by Dim Sport. They make the Rapid Bike Evo, which is the adjustable one, and there's a Rapid Bike Evo Exclusive, which is the sort of cheaper version that you can only use on this bike. The standard Rapid Bike Evo you could take off, and if you replace this with a Yamaha, you could have it updated so it would work on the Yamaha. All of these, by the way, are relatively expensive. All of them have additional add-on modules that are even more expensive. So for example, the Rapid Bike Evo, it has a Bluetooth adapter that will allow you to see stuff on your mobile phone about how fast the bike's going, what angle it's leaning at, and all this sort of stuff. So there's lots of options out there. There's a U-Tune thing which allows you to tune the bike in certain ways. So you can spend a lot of money on these add-on boxes. But if you want auto-tune as your primary one, then Rapid Bike Evo is probably the way to go. But look around at the others. The map bikes, some of them have an auto-tune option, but not all of them do. So be wary of that. The map units are the Dynojet Power Commander, that does not have an auto-tune function. The Kuba, that does not have an auto-tune function. The Bazaz, which does, I think, have an auto-tune function. And the Powertronic, which I'm not sure if it has an auto-tune function or not. I think it doesn't. So I think only the Bazaz has an auto tune function for the Duke 390. The Power Commander has auto tune for other bikes, but not this one. But it may do by the time you come to actually buy the ECU. So, but that's your basic difference between them, is that maps only work if you have a known configuration, and auto tune is more variable, but it's never going to be as good as a specific map for your bike, because it's always going to be a little bit off somewhere or other, because it's trying to adapt all the time. When you want to step up beyond just the bike modification and you're actually interested in performance, then you're really going to be pushing down the map route, in my opinion, because those are the ones that are going to give you the specific best gains for your setup. That would exclude the rapid bike, but not so fast. When you're stepping up to run on performance, you've got to bear in mind that so far all we've talked about is fuel controllers. And there's another important aspect, and that's ignition control. And you need something that gives you control not over the fuel, but also over the ignition, because those two factors are very important. Of the 5 units that you have available to you, this takes out the Kuba and the Bazaz, because neither of them have the ability for you to create custom maps which include the ignition timing. Oddly enough, the Powertronic does. When you step up to the racing module, then it has a lot of extra things available to you, including the ability to build maps, but it does also control the ignition timing. So that gives you at least a pseudo performance line, and that could be an option you might want to think about. If you want to go map, only the Power Commander and the Powertronic will give you the ability to control the ignition timing. So again, you've got the auto tune versus mapped route there. If you're serious about track days, then you're probably going mapped route. That would be my opinion. Now bear in mind that these units all have a map switch, so that you can set at least 2 maps. So let's say you've got a Power Commander, you use the map switch, you ride to the track on your street map, you get to the track, you flip the switch, you're on your track map, which is optimized for the track. You end your track day, you flip the switch, you go back to your street map and ride home. You need to have a look at the detail of all these boxes, because they have a lot of options, and you might find that one of them has an option you really want, or that one that you would otherwise have bought doesn't have an option you want. So this is where it gets messy, and it's why somebody else can't really advise you. If you've got an RC, then I suggest that probably the Power Commander is the more obvious choice for you, simply because on the RC390 forum there's been a lot of people spend a lot of time building maps for that bike, and the RC is a little bit different to the Duke in the engine. If you've got an RC, it's worthwhile going that route. I know that there are some people who've done maps for other controllers, but Power Commander was the one I think they mainly started on, so that's probably where the most maps are available. So I would suggest you head over to the RC390 forum and spend some time reading. And probably also, if you don't have an RC but you do want to learn more about maps and mapping, probably that's a good place to go, because people have the right connectors to connect the Duke or the KTM 390 to a laptop and know what software to use. There are some other people out there, but that's probably the place you'll find them most easily. Those are your real options, as I say. So you've got bikes running a bit jerky in stock mode, so you go with a basic fuel controller. If you're modifying the bike, then you go for one of the other 5 options, and you've got to decide whether or not you have the technical ability to have a map or you want auto tune. So one other thing I will say is that Kuba work in conjunction with KTM. They have a very limited number of maps and you can't build a custom map, but the upside is that they will take care of your KTM warranty, which none of the others do. As soon as you plug a box into this, you can kiss your warranty goodbye because it's gone. Anything that breaks on your bike, they will blame on your fuel controller, even if it has nothing to do with it, and good luck taking them to court to prove otherwise. So I like Rapid Bike because of the auto-tune facilities. So you've got Kuba, which is good, but it's limited. You've got Power Commander, which is more sort of RC based, I would say. Powertronic is an excellent one, as far as I can see, but again, it's map based. I don't think they have an auto-tune facility, but most of these things, aside from the Kuba, which is a bit limited, they've got things for quick shifters and this sort of stuff. So it's worthwhile having a good look. And Bazaz. I don't know a lot about Bazaz, but that is an alternative. Those are your 5, and as I say, if you're going for the performance route, then I would say you're going to be spending a decent amount of money. You probably want to go with the mapped routes if you're really serious. If you just want to do the odd track day or so forth and just have all the toys like the quick shifter and that sort of stuff, I would probably go with the Rapid Bike Racing. Those are your alternatives. So summarize: basic fueling adapter, booster plug, Rapid Bike Easy. If you're modifying your bike, then you need to go to something more expensive and more adaptable, and it's going to be one of those 5: Rapid Bike, Kuba, Powertronic, Power Commander and Bazaz, only one of which is auto-tune, I think, and Bazaz has the auto-tune option. And if you want performance, then you need to go map, I think, but then you're much more restricted into that build, and every time you change the build you'll need to do a new map for it, so you need to be up on your sensors and understanding how to tune a bike. Anyway, I hope that was helpful, and I hope it wasn't too complicated, but anyway, I will see you again soon.